What's up, beautiful people? So in today's episode, we have Kraft, where we talked about how to show genuine love to people who hurt you or vice versa. I hope you guys enjoy this interview. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for agreeing for this interview.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I want my viewers to really understand who you are and what you've accomplished.
I would love to understand who I am and what I've accomplished too. My work for the past 10 years has been working in schools, doing like speaking for assemblies and leadership conferences. And back in 2016, one of my heroes and mentors, we came together to create this thing called Character Strong, which is all about helping schools more effectively teach kindness, compassion, empathy, connection, all those things that we know are important and believe in, but I think sometimes we forget that they're like just as much of a skill set as just about anything else.
That's true.
Schools don't necessarily have time for it, or they don't know how to teach it, so we try to create tools to make schools more human.
Got you. And with your speeches, because I know you're a speaker, right? So what do you mainly talk about? What is your main topic you go to every time you go to a school and talk?
Yeah, I think the overall theme is make kindness normal. So how do we, and it stems from a story that I tell often around being next to this woman on an airplane. And when I told her that I worked in schools talking about kindness, she shared with me a story about how the last time she'd ridden on an airplane was because she had lost her dad. And she was flying from Washington to Arizona to go and try to see him, but he literally passed away on the flight. And so she lands in Arizona, she's in the airport, and for basically 2 hours, 3,000 people walked by her and no one stopped. And I'm talking to her on the airplane about this, and she has this line where she says, "I realized in the airport that day that kindness isn't normal." And I remember being really affected by that as someone that believes in kindness, and in a world where I think we sort of all agree that kindness is good. I remember thinking, why is that? What are we missing? And so over the years, my topic has changed a little bit. It's always been thematically about love or kindness or connection or compassion, but more and more I've honed in on that idea of what does it look like to make kindness normal in our world, and then how do you make that smaller, right? So what does it look like to make kindness normal in a school? What does it look like to make kindness most challengingly and perhaps most importantly in our own lives? So how do we create habits that are healthy and positive and serve others and take care of ourselves? And so the theme is making kindness normal.
Wow. Okay, so honing into that, I know that, in our lives, we have all had people or a group of people that have hurt us. And I know the norm, basically, when people hurt us is to take revenge. And I want to know, for you personally, what was the catalyst that allowed you to change that mindset from taking revenge into a more compassionate and caring one?
So much of our life is affected by the relationships that we have in it. And when you have role models of people that know how to handle conflict or resentment or anger well, it just gives you perspective to know how to do it better in your own life. So one of my favorite quotes I heard a couple years ago that's messed up my brain ever since is that life is as big as our awareness, which means the entire size of our life is exactly the size of everything that we're aware of. So the things that we're aware of are the things that we know or the things that we know that we don't know. But then there's a much larger category of things that we don't know that we don't know. But if we don't know that we don't know them, they literally don't exist to us. So for so many people, those skills of being able to navigate hurt or navigate resentment or navigate forgiveness, we only are able to use the skills that we've seen in the world, because if we don't have any other perspectives offered to us, if we don't get a chance to see people role model what that looks like, then we literally don't know how to do it. Maslow says if the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So forgiveness is one of those big ones that is super misunderstood and not often well role modeled in the world, and so we have a hard time with it. So for me, I've just been lucky enough to see other people and learn from other people who've taught me that forgiveness isn't saying what you did to me is okay. Forgiveness is separating the person from the behavior. So I can love you as a person and say your behavior's not okay. And that's challenging because we sometimes lump those two things together. But we all behave in ways that are out of alignment sometimes. We all behave in ways
Exactly.
that are byproducts of our own hurt, our own pain,
Exactly.
that we then inflict onto others. And
Yeah.
so if I can separate you from that behavior that hurt me, I can forgive you and say, this behavior is not okay in my life, right? I'm allowed to create that boundary.
Yeah, that's powerful.
That's
Wow.
really powerful for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like, quotes are like great ways to like wrap your heads around complicated subjects.
Exactly.
So separating person from behavior is a big one in my life. We can't sow seeds with closed fists is one of my favorites.
Wow, that's very amazing.
Yeah, you're never going to grow if you're hanging on to all the stuff that
Exactly.
hurts.
Exactly.
And then my other favorite is like a humbling reminder. I forget who says the quote, but it's like when you're holding a grudge, the other person's out dancing, which means the only person it's hurting is
you.
is you, and it's
Wow.
like that's a dumb thing we do to ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I love stuff like that informs these words, and I've been lucky enough to be given lots of those perspectives that have helped me, not perfect it by any stretch of the imagination, but like get better at forgiveness in my life.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful. Like forgiveness, a lot of people, they see forgiveness as like what you said, forgiving the person, but it's really the behavior that we have to forgive. Yeah, that's really powerful. So what are the top 3 habits that someone can practice every day to change the mindset of like what we were just talking about, taking on revenge? So what you can give to my viewers, what would you say would be the top 3 habits that you think they should do to change the mindset of wanting to take revenge or hurting the other person to a more compassionate and loving mindset?
Yeah, I mean, habits is such an interesting concept and word to me for lots of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The data would tell us that 45% of our day is built on routine.
Mm-hmm.
So like half of our life is on autopilot,
Right.
which is wild. So to me, just knowing that piece of information makes it that much more important in my life to figure out what are the habits that I want. What do I want in that 45%? Because if it's going to control half my life, then like half my health, half my gratitude, half my happiness is going to be dictated in that time.
Right.
So those habits can look like lots of things to a lot of different people. For me, one of my favorite strategies from Brene Brown, who's a researcher and writer on shame and vulnerability and empathy and connection. She does everything. She's amazing. And she has one of the most watched TED Talks of all time. And she has a couple of things that she's said that I've found to be really profound. One of them is she's interviewed thousands of people. And in all of her data, she discovered that the most kind people were also the most boundaried, which is a little bit counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Meaning they actually say no to more things than they say yes to.
Wow.
And for some of us, we think that just like saying yes to everything or everyone is like being generous. Yeah. But sometimes when we say yes to everything, we overextend ourselves, and then we end up giving half of our energy to half of the places.
Right. True.
Half the time. And so one of her strategies is she has like a Post-it note, about the size of a Post-it note. And it's things that are okay and not okay in my life.
Oh, wow.
And so going back to the person, the behavior thing is like really actually like writing down and clarifying what's okay, like declaring what's okay and what's not okay in my life. So it's not okay for people to treat me like X. Mm-hmm. It is okay for people to treat me like Y. Mm-hmm. Right? And like literally writing that out so that you have a benchmark to go back to when someone's treating you in a way and you feel like it's we're our own slippery slope where we can like self-justify, especially if we want to be kind or we're like people pleasers like I am, or codependent at all. Then we want to justify people's behaviors as like it's okay or they didn't mean to, or we're confused about what forgiveness actually means, and so sometimes we like let people off the hook when like sometimes that clarity is really important for holding people accountable.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of my favorite concepts is like we can love people from a distance. You know, you can say like, I love you, but you're not allowed to be in this space of my life right now. Which is really important and really healthy to remove some of that toxicity from our life. So another strategy Brene Brown talks about is like writing a permission slip to yourself, which like we used to do when we were kids. Like families would sign off on these things, like you're allowed to go to this.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes we need that self permission to do or be the things that we like say we want to be, but don't always align our actions to it because we get busy.
Exactly.
Which would be kind of leads me to the last strategy, which is If you're the kind of person that enjoys to-do lists, which most people
yeah.
are,
yeah,
like sadistically so in the U.S., we write things down we've already done just to check them off.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite premises is that our to-be list should be prioritized over our to-do list. So who we want to be in our life needs to be a bigger deal than like all the things we need to get done that day.
Wow.
So most people do
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we do it backwards most of the time.
Exactly.
We're like, I'll get to this stuff after I do everything else I have to do.
Exactly.
And that's like a funny backwards way of like doing everything else that like the world wants you to do before you do what you believe in or care about.
Right.
So literally writing out like, today I want to be kind. What does that look like? Well, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z today. Right. And then I'm going to do this. Right? Like, so if I want to be the kind of person that's grateful, well, what does that mean? On my to-be list, it means I have to spend 5 minutes journaling about gratitude in my life.
Exactly.
Before I write those emails, or before I do the laundry, or before I, whatever I have, life is asking me to do that day.
Yeah. I want to really get into, because a lot of people, when they see a really loving person, I think you mentioned this already, they think that you're going to say yes to everything. And sometimes, people take advantage of how much love you give out. So I want to ask you, what is the biggest misconception you've noticed that people have about being such a loving person?
Yeah, that love means being a doormat would be a misconception. Right? Oh yeah. Like 100%. To love people well requires both. We always say like the tough and the tender, right?
Right.
Where it's like we most often in our culture associate love with the tender part of things. Where it's like, oh, everything's okay, I'll help you, I'll be there. But sometimes love looks like really hard conversations, tough, honest conversations. It looks like creating a boundary between people. It doesn't always feel good to set up, but it's like actually healthy for both the people. It's sometimes communicating into your life things that you don't want to hear, but are like important for you. And like, because I care about you, I'm going to draw this line, or I'm going to tell you this thing. James Hunter defines leadership. He says the definition of leadership is meeting people's legitimate needs. Wow. If you want to make it really simple.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That definition is important because it's not wants.
Yeah.
Right, and sometimes we think that love is like doing whatever people want us to do, and that gets messy pretty fast because some people are confused about what they want. Some people want things for people for the wrong reasons. Some people use the wants as like manipulation tools.
Oh,
so
100%.
The skill set then of love is discerning what people's needs are versus what their wants are, and then having the discipline and the fortitude and the vulnerability and like the communication skills to like lay out those boundaries, to speak honestly into people's lives, to not just like be a doormat, but like truly stand up for the things that you care about, and for caring about people. That's the most loving thing we can do. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is fire someone. Sometimes the most loving thing we could do is break up with someone. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do, and there's like lots of those things that feel counterintuitive based on our culture's presentation of love. And that's where it's important that you get like clarity around what kind of love you're trying to be about in the world.
Right, exactly. I love that. Okay, so I really want to go into, nowadays I'm sure you've noticed, there's a lot of people on the internet that are, taking this concept into their life of spreading love, spreading kindness, and everything like that. But the thing I've noticed, and I know a lot of viewers have noticed this too, and many people on the internet have noticed this, that some people, they preach about this of, spreading love and kindness and having a caring, passionate mindset, but their actions say otherwise. So, so from your perspective, how can a person genuinely have agape love, which is, universal love for everyone, and not a tongue-in-cheek love where they just say it but they don't really truly mean it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, so much of that is individual work, it's like understanding. First, we have to understand the distinction between the two. And again, it goes back to that like perspective piece. It comes back to language. Like when we say the word kindness or love, what does come to our brains? And for some people, the version they know is the tongue-in-cheek version. It is the manipulative version, because that's all that that's the thing they've seen most in their life. And so most of us are just echoes of experience.
Wow. Yeah. True.
So I think that like, first of all, being patient with people that are using love in that way. understanding maybe where it's coming from. And then if you're the person that wants to like own whether or not you're doing that, which I think it's worth the reflection question, how much of my love is conditional?
Yeah.
And that's a tough question to like honestly answer, but we say that like honesty isn't just truth telling, it's truth living. So it's about like alignment, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm aligning all of my actions towards this thing that I profess to believe in. And I think that self-reflection is really tough individual work that most of us will spend our whole life trying to like sift through.
Oh, right.
But I also think that I think we have like a branding issue with kindness in our world right now. It's interesting because I've believed in kindness for a long time, and like I love kindness. I haven't always been really good at kindness, but I like it a lot.
Right.
And even over the past like 5 years, I think there's been a lot of things in our culture and world where like kindness is like being promoted. Like in like Target, you can buy shirts that say kindness, and it's like that's cool. And I think we have to be careful because I work in lots of schools, and so I see posters of kindness everywhere because every school wants to be a kind school.
Yeah.
But just because you put it up on the walls doesn't guarantee you're going to see actions.
Exactly.
And the quote I see most often is throw kindness around like confetti, which is like a famous like Pinterest, Instagram quote that like makes its viral rounds all the time. And it's a lovely concept.
Yeah.
I also think it like fluffifies kindness in a really dangerous way.
Oh yeah,
like
100%.
If we think that kindness is as easy as confetti, then I think we're missing what true unconditional kindness is. Because that type of kindness is actually way harder, way more sacrificial, way more authentic than just throwing kindness around, or throwing confetti around rather. So I'm a bit on a mission to like shift that poster, because I think that poster, while well-intentioned, those t-shirts at Target, while well-intentioned, I don't think they talk about kindness in a way that honors how hard it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that like as a culture, we have to own the fact that if we're going to throw kindness around as loosely as we do, we better start defining it collectively to represent how challenging it is in practice.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to just touch upon that subject, because I've seen a lot of, like what you said, posts and posters and t-shirts of like spread kindness, like, be kind to everybody, but people don't really show it. So
what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like what kind of example are you putting on to those people, or like your viewers or anybody that you're wanting to impact, if you're not really taking action with your words? You're just saying them to say it. So now going back to resentment, how much do you think holding resentment hurts a person?
Yeah, there's a great quote about it. Something about like, it's like resentment is drinking poison thinking the other person's gonna die or something.
Oh my God.
It goes back to that whole like, right, when you're holding a grudge, the other person's out dancing.
Yeah.
Resentment is like, has like physical effects on your body. Right? Resentment, like literally, like physiologically, your body is in more stress, it's more anxious. Like, you're gonna hurt yourself by holding resentment towards others.
Right.
And so that like the practice of letting go of that, I don't know, it's like any we call our company Character Strong, because we think that like character is like a muscle that you can exercise in your life.
Yeah.
And they've actually done a bunch of really interesting research around willpower. It's saying that it's not an ability or like a skill so much as it is a muscle, meaning like you can grow it, which is great. You can like improve your willpower, but it also means it can get fatigued in the same way that like when you lift a bunch of heavy weights, like at some point it gives out.
Yeah, right.
Which is why there's like all this interesting data around surgeons who make really simple mistakes after like long days, because they've like run out of juice. And like there's actually data around like doctors like and infidelity after long days, because they've used up all their willpower in their work, and then when they have a circumstance relationally where they have an opportunity to like make a poor decision, they're more likely to make that poor decision because we've run out of like the willpower. So I just like that analogy, because it reminds me that if I don't practice in the little moments with the small weights, then I'll never build the capacity for the more challenging moments.
Right.
And so sometimes we think like holding on to little moments of resentment here or there is not a big deal, but I think it's actually like those moments that cumulatively add up to, if you don't take care of those ones, then you don't have like the skill set, literally the strength to like navigate the more challenging ones.
Right.
So resentment is one of those things that I think we have to chip away at.
Yeah. Building off of that, what is the best piece of advice that you would give to a young person that is carrying rage and resentment?
Rage is a big one. Rage is like a very outward, explosive thing.
Right.
And if you're experiencing rage, I imagine you're in a lot of pain. So I want to be careful not to offer any advice that like dismisses the validity of that pain. So like step one is like honor your hurt. You know, you're hurting, and that is frustrating, and you're allowed to be angry.
Right.
At people, at the world, at things. Resentment, we've talked about a lot. It's like the poison thing. It's like more internal.
Yeah.
It's the gradual. It's the slow death. With both of those, like honor the fact that this stuff is hurting, and you're allowed to experience that. In fact, you're allowed to express your anger in ways that like doesn't hurt yourself or other people. Like find outlets for that. Some people go boxing, some people go dancing, some people paint. Like some people sing, scream. Like those things are allowed and healthy and good. On the other side of that, one of my favorite concepts, it's like a derivative of a quote by a guy named G.K. Chesterton, and it's how much bigger your life gets when you make yourself smaller in it. Which is to say, find things in your life that you're pursuing that feel bigger than you.
Yeah.
Because when your whole life is driven by your rage, your resentment, your anger, your bitterness, your anxiety, your exhaustion, then your life is the size of you, right? Because your whole experience is determined by whatever you're feeling in that moment.
Exactly.
And that's a really exhausting and small way to live. And so my advice would be like take those things that have made you angry, take those experiences and leverage them towards something bigger than you. Like find a purpose worth pursuing that helps people or helps yourself or helps others going through something similar to you. My friend Ethan Zahn, he says, never let a crisis go to waste.
Right.
Like never let like an experience that's been painful in your life like go to waste. And go to waste just means that it's all about you. I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm hurt, this is all about me. And then your life is exactly the size of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus like, what if I looked at this hurt and I'm allowed to feel it, I'm allowed to experience it. What if I took this and like used it to fuel that purpose in my life and use it to help people and like invested in something bigger than me, and all of a sudden my like, it's freeing because no longer is my anger just a vehicle internally. It's something that I'm using to leverage towards something like bigger.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. It's crazy that you mentioned, you said like use that pain, right? Because one of my mentors, I remember I was going through something really hard one day, and I was angry. I was so angry with the person that hurt me, and I was telling him, and he told me, he's like, instead of dwelling on that pain, why don't you use it for your breakthrough? Like it's just, you need to use it to break through. Why are you gonna let it go to waste? You touched upon using pain and resentment or whatever as like what I said right now, like to push you into a bigger purpose in life. So many people find drive and motivation through like the people that don't like them, or the people that they spit hateful words towards them. But I know you're all about, showing kindness no matter who tells you what, right? So what do you think about that? Like that mindset of using those hateful words, those hateful comments, that negative vibes, everything as motivation instead of, showing love and kindness? Like, what do you think about that?
I would encourage a different choice. I don't know.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, like, I sometimes have the attitude, like, haters gonna hate. And I think all of us at some point get pleasure from, like, winning when people think you're gonna lose. Like, there's something naturally satisfying about that.
Right.
I mean, would you rather, like, make cake with love or with hate? Like, if you're gonna make something, what ingredients do you want to put into it?
Oh, wow.
And if it comes from a place of hate, like, sure. I mean, the ingredients I want to use in my life just look different, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think that there's, I think the mentality of that is like that we have to win. Right? That we have to like beat people, like these people that you're angry with, like we're gonna show them. And I think it's just a good reminder that like probably at the end of the day they don't really care.
Yeah.
And so like you're trying to like you're in this competition and it's just you on the field and
Yeah.
you look kind of dumb. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's like what if like the bigger, more interesting choice for your life is to like invite them in, or to like or to love them or honor them, or forgive them in a way that feels profound, right? There's so many examples of that. Nelson Mandela spent nearly 30 years of his life in a prison, and he walks out and he goes, "I forgive you."
Yeah.
And that's the entirety of my life he spent in prison.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I forgive you."
Wow.
And that's that is way more interesting to me, and the world celebrates it, right? Like we have to pay attention. Like the world is like, "Whoa, what this guy just did is insane," and it's more insane than like him walking out and like going and getting rid of apartheid. The action of forgiveness in that moment is way more interesting than like the "I'm gonna show you" mentality.
Right.
But I think in our world we get so caught up in that "I'm gonna show you" mentality because we feel compelled. We're like animals, cage animals. Like we have to win, but like we're not. There's no competition.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I think the fuel or the ingredient of love is more powerful, and Abraham Lincoln said something around like, the best way to defeat your enemies is to befriend them. Basically, it's like you could live your life with a whole bunch of enemies and like be in constant stressful competition, or you could like do the harder work of befriending or loving them, even if it's from a distance, which is a better way of winning, I think.
Yeah, really changed my perspective because I've grown up, like my family has taught me and the people around me have always taught me to, like if there's people hating you or, just not vibing with you in some sort of way, just, make it and prove to them that you can do it, and that all their negative feedback, it's like gonna just hit them in the face. But wow, now listening about like loving and really like the quote you just said about Abraham Lincoln, befriending your enemies, like it's so true. Like sometimes we forget about love and forgiveness and we just want to win, and sometimes it's only us on the playing field,
Yeah, I mean it's okay to prove people wrong too, right? Like in the sense of I think the best way we can prove people wrong is through consistency. Meaning, I started a club about kindness when I was in high school, and there were kids who like made fun of me or mocked me for it. And I literally have an example from this year, and it's been over a decade since I've been in high school. And I got a message from a kid on Facebook like a couple months ago being like, "Hey, just want to let you know what you're doing now, I really respect." And the last line was really powerful. He goes, "In high school I didn't understand." And so that idea that like 10 years later, I didn't even know this guy's like following the work, but 10 years later I get this message. Which like feels good, and it's not like I was trying to beat this kid or there is a sense in me that says, "Oh, I proved this kid wrong," but not in a way about him, but like I'm proud of myself for continuing to try to live into the thing that I said that I always believed in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So if you were down to your last couple hours of life, what would you tell the viewers out here that are seeing this and hearing this is the biggest lesson you've learned in your whole life?
There are 3 small things that I think about probably most. One is my tattoo, which says "Be is greater than do." So that to-be list versus the to-do list. That we're human beings, not human doings. I've always loved that idea.
Yeah.
So when you think about success in your life, I don't think it's a one or the other thing, but make sure you don't forget about, in terms of accomplishments, like what does the accomplishment around being look like versus all the things you do.
Yeah.
The second one would be one of my favorite words, which is mudita. Mudita is a Sanskrit word. It means vicarious joy, meaning I find happiness in the happiness of others.
Wow.
So creating opportunities for people to be empowered, to feel loved, to feel supported. One of the pursuits of my life is to continue to find less happiness in my own selfish, like, "Oh, I want this thing, because it makes me happy, and more about like, if I make you happy, the happiness I see in you is much more profound than the happiness I get from my own momentary transactions." And the last one is something I've just been thinking about a lot recently, which is Robert Greenleaf coined the term servant leadership. And he says the true test of a servant leader is whether or not they left people better than they found them. especially those with the least amount of power. So what does that mean for your life? What does that mean for my life? I think is a question that we should ask ourselves often.
Wow.
Am I leaving people better than I found them? And what am I doing with whatever my platform looks like, whatever my privilege looks like? What am I doing that to help people with less power than me?
Wow.
Because that is leadership.
Yeah.
And love.
Well, thank you so much, Houston, for being
so
here and talking to my viewers and everything. Because, love and kindness, it's really a topic that is kind of overlooked. And like you said, like kind of simplified, but there's so much more. It's so much deeper than what people think. But thank you so much again for being here. Where can my viewers find you if they want to look more into your stuff?
Yeah, I'm here a lot. This is where I live, so you can find me right here. No, you can find me at Houston Kraft on Instagram. That's where I exist most of the time, I guess. I exist in myself most of the time. But at Houston Kraft, Houston like the city, Kraft like the cheese. And then Character Strong is the work. So if you're interested in learning more about what we do to support schools and teachers and hopefully make the world a more kind place through education, that's Character Strong.